Can you quickly introduce yourself, Lashek, your role at the company, your responsibilities, and how long you've been working in the e-commerce industry?
Sure. Great. Thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Leszek Lexton. I am the co-founder of PointStory. I've been in the e-commerce industry pretty much all my career after college. I started in a Fortune 100 company in telecom, various responsibilities there, including usability, testing and design and research, overall testing, UAT testing, did some design work, but did some finance work as well, project finance work, and then finally moved into project management and product management within e-commerce. Then went in to get my MBA degree, and after that I joined Amazon as a product manager working on self-service advertising solutions. And then after leaving Amazon, I started working with consumer brands, advising them on their Amazon businesses around advertising and marketing. And that's what prompted starting more of a company. When I met my co-founder, Yves, who had extensive e-commerce experience as well, and we founded PointStory, and it's been now 3 years running PointStory. And so I would say my overall responsibilities at PointStory are really, it's a small company, so across the board, I work very closely with our clients on strategy, but I also spend quite a bit of time on running the PointStory from business development, operations, marketing, really all aspects of the business.
Got it. And Leszek, what is your target market, and what are your business goals in the company, Leszek?
Yeah, so in terms of our target market, those have evolved over time. We like to work with consumer brands that are serious about building their brands. So, within Amazon, there are a lot of resellers. We tend to stay away from resellers. So we work with brands across all categories. So really don't discriminate. We want to work with brands that have good products that have been either already validated by consumers, in form of, good reviews. Or we also like to work with small or early, almost startups. We had some really good experiences, some early successes with that with companies that are, well thought out, well capitalized, and have a good plan moving forward. So, ideally, we would work with companies that have already proven themselves. Maybe they struggle with scaling. So we help them with that. Or we work with companies that have a good plan, good funding, and are looking to launch their business on Amazon. Or maybe they're companies that are more traditional, that have had little to none, digital presence. And so we like to bring them into digital. So I think those are our three sort of target markets or target companies.
Got it. And you're in the space of Amazon agency, right? So you're helping brands sell better on Amazon. Can you touch upon some of the unique data challenges that you experience running this business?
We've started initially just on Amazon, and then we saw the need of companies moving, into different areas, especially around demand generation. So, Amazon, to run a successful Amazon business, you no longer can just rely on Amazon demand generation. We like to drive traffic from other sources. So we've expanded into that. We also expanded into other point of sales, whether it's other marketplaces or Shopify site. But in terms of data challenges, it certainly is a challenge because the reporting out of Amazon, whether it's Seller Central or Vendor Central, is pretty limiting, and it's also extremely. Big challenge is combining data from different reports. So we do a lot of analysis where we pull various reports from the advertising console, and then we pull reports from business reports, and then combining, creating VLOOKUPs. It's very manual process to combine the data to get the insights that we're looking for. I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, is just the data is very spread out, and then even for our weekly or monthly reports, it would take us several hours to pull the data, because it's just the various sources, and then obviously that is prone to lots of mistakes. And so the time we would spend on these reports is very very unproductive, really very unproductive.
Got it. And how many customers do you currently serve, Leszek?
Right now we have, I would say, I think 14 different brands that we work with.
Okay. And do they sell in multiple countries?
Yes, we are based in the US, and most of our clients are US centric, although we have a few clients that are outside of the US, but they're still focusing on the US market. But that I would say that probably 80 right now, it's about 80% is the US, but all these clients for the most part also do Canada. And then we have a few clients that we've launched in EU.
Okay.
And then we're working right now with a client that is based in EU. So that would be a pretty significant client in the EU space. Yeah, but I would say right now we're mostly US centric.
Got it. So you've mentioned that from a challenges standpoint, manual reporting, downloading data from advertising console, sales console has been a challenge. Have you tried any of the out of the box Amazon reporting solutions? And how was your experience? Can you touch upon, did you experience any challenges using those tools?
We've tried quite a few. We've tried a few solutions, and I would say the issues that we have with out of the box is the level of there's few challenges. One, we have not found one that would allow us to have any input into customization of data. So I think a lot of these tools, that I would say most, if not all of those tools, are geared towards private label sellers. And so they're built a little bit differently than we would want to use. So they, lack of customization. Two, the KPIs that are available are not necessarily all the KPIs that we would want to see. They tend to not go into a great detail that we like to do. We also had some issues with load and performance, so they're kind of slow and just not well thought out. So I would say in general, we just don't feel like it's like any of those work. And I think we've tried 4 different ones. Yeah. So that's overall. And a lot of them, what we found too is the big problem is like you'll find a solution that would do maybe a good job in reporting on, let's say, retail sales, but then it wouldn't have a good advertising reporting, or a good advertising reporting that wouldn't have a good, business. So it's like there wasn't a tool that would meet all of our needs across retail, catalog, and advertising.
Can you touch upon the solution that Saras set up for you? Let's check.
So we've spent a lot of time working on requirements and working on designing a solution that would meet our needs. And I think what was really great is that we were able to sit together, create requirements, and then working with Saras was really good from the perspective of the flexibility, and also we were able to brainstorm quite a bit. Well, we would say we would need this type of data, and then Saras was able to let us know if the data is readily available, or if we need to create any sort of calculations or any lookups. So I think it was a really collaborative process from the requirements phase into implementation. So we spent a bit of time defining that and then working through that. And I think what our goal was to create one solution that would give us, the data that we need across Seller Central, Vendor Central, and Advertising Console. And so that's, it was an iterative process. We worked, we had daily stand-ups, which was really great. And we were able to, deliver a solution and then continuously work on adjusting it as needed. With Saras to get a connection using Daton, and we're able to get the data through API from Seller Central, Vendor Central, and the Advertising Console. And then we were able to get the data visualized through Power BI, and that's what we've been using. And we actually worked initially on GDS, Google Data Studio, and we found some limitations there. And so over time, we were able to basically move the visualization aspect and the analysis aspect of the data, which we do quite a bit, into Power BI. And that's where we are right now. And we've been using now Power BI for, I would say.
Can you touch on maybe what is the cost of the data warehouse that you're currently incurring? I just want everyone to know that data warehouse is very inexpensive right now, so any company should have a data warehouse.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because when we started, we had certain expectations of the cost, and it was initially, and we can edit that hopefully, but I want to talk about like the optimization piece.
Yeah.
Because it was really interesting. So as we started to add more data and scale and kind of build things out, the costing went to about, like our data warehouse monthly cost went to about $1,000 and just over $1,000. But then we worked with Saras to optimize that. And I think now it's been coming down quite drastically. And I think now it's closer to, for all of our clients, it's closer to $300.
Can you touch upon before implementing Sarah's solution? You mentioned that the reporting was happening manually. Is there an estimate of what you were incurring in terms of costs, either in terms of resource expenses or the other tools that you were using?
I can maybe share on average what it would take us to pull reports per account.
Yeah.
So then, those are monthly reports. I'm sorry, weekly reports. So we meet with our clients on weekly basis, and we have what we call weekly business review, where we review all the KPIs. We talk about the drivers behind the KPIs. We talk about the plan for next week. But we also have monthly reviews. So it would take us on average, because we did some analysis on that, it would take us about 2 hours every week from the analyst perspective to pull the data. And then there was at least another 30 to 45 minutes in data validation to ensure that data was done correctly. So that was another. And then there was another at least like 30 minutes from the account manager to go through and do a secondary data validation. So assuming everything would go well, it was about 3.5 hours, but it was longer if we had to fix data. So yeah, that's pretty costly just to understand, the weekly performance, and, and we had to do it basically every week and every account. So big drain on the resources.
Around 3 hours per week. So we're looking at about 42 hours a week times 4, so about 160 hours that we're able to save.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, I would say, that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
So when you evaluated the offering that Saras put in front of you, let's check. What are probably the top 2 or 3 features that really caught your attention? That hey, I want to give it a try?
I think the first one is customization. I think that was really important to us to be able to work with somebody who can customize and work on requirements and build something from scratch. We were considering building something from scratch, but it's like we just don't have the resources and the focus. Like we needed somebody who was already familiar with the data structure, already familiar with the platform. And then, somebody we can give requirements and collaborate on these requirements to make sure that the requirements can be implemented. So that was something that was really important to have a partner that we can work with on building a solution that worked for us, and then be able to maintain it and be able to change it in the future. Also was important to us that we had the data, like it was our data, so we could have some kind of a connector, but then bring the data to us. So that was another one. And then the other thing was that even though we started this in a very Amazon centric way, like our vision is to be able to connect other data points, other data sources outside of Amazon. So Sarah said an experience and has done quite a bit of work, not just on Amazon, but other digital channels. And so I think we're aligned in that, that we want to be, an e-commerce solution provider, not just Amazon. And so in that way, I know that Sarah's ambitions and scope is aligned. So that was a very important aspect as well. Yeah, and I think the third one was cost. I think the pricing was very fair compared to, let's say, building it from scratch ourselves or working with others, other competitors of Saras, I suppose. So, and then I think the fourth one is the value, meaning, cost is one thing, but the quality was there. I think from the very early conversation with Saras, it was like we had a really good feeling that you guys knew what you were talking about. You had familiarity with the platform, the work that you did or showed through demos, and just the conversation. We were able to have pretty detailed conversation from the very beginning, and so it was clear to us that you guys had a good understanding of Amazon data systems.
Got it. And how long did it take you to take the purchase decision? Let's check.
I would say, if I remember correctly, it was definitely under a month.
Okay.
To get from the concept to implementation. I think I could be wrong. It's been a while, but I remember, like, I think there was definitely it definitely made a difference that we were able to meet in person.
And after the solution was implemented at PointStory, did you see any changes within the organization with data available in front of you?
We implemented it. We're obviously working and we're starting to see the data flowing, but just for a while, it was about like a 2-month overlap or so, where we were still pulling data manually just to make sure we had coverage. And then I think it's to make a change in an organization always takes time, because people are used to doing things. So it took a while to get the team start looking at the data through Power BI, or initially GDS and then Power BI. But now we're fully transitioned, and because we had to rewrite our SOPs, we had to train people. So it was about 3-month, I think 3-month period or so, like for the transition.
Got it. And do you see any benefits with the solution? Let's like beyond just the time saving that we're able to help you with?
Yeah, I mean, time saving is huge, but it also, it's the availability of data. Like, for example, there are data points that I need to have like pretty quickly. Like, let's say I want to understand the impact of certain keywords or certain campaign, and before I would have to pull several reports, do VLOOKUPs, and do analysis, and at times, like you just don't have the time to do it. So sometimes you just end up not doing it, or getting it delayed. So we're just the availability of data, I think, is super important, because I know I can go into the system and I can access the data instantaneously, as opposed to creating requesting a report, running a report, downloading a report, manipulating data, creating VLOOKUPs, all that is now just clicks away. So that's it. It's not the timing that it takes, but also the availability. Because of that, we're able to do quicker analysis instantaneously.
And the dashboards that we set up, are they being used only internally, or have you exposed them to clients, or are you looking to expose them to your clients?
So right now we mostly use them internally. What we've done is we would incorporate potentially a screenshot, a screenshot of a dashboard, but we do not give clients like access to it. And that's something that we've been working with you guys on. Just the limitations of Power BI in terms of sharing. There has to be a specific email account to access this data. So we're potentially looking at other solutions as well, like down the road, because we do want to down the road, we do want to share the dashboard live, so clients can go at any time and access the data. So that's the next phase of what we're working on. So far, to answer your question, it's just been screenshots, static data, but no access to like real dashboards.
And the dashboards that we set up, let's take from a use cases standpoint, are they only serving internal and client reporting, or are you using them for automating maybe your finance dashboards, or maybe performing audits for your new customers? Are there any use cases that we explored so far?
To the use case for, we're working on a solution where we would be authenticating potential clients through an automated solution, and then you guys already built a dashboard that pulls the data and allows us to do a very quick analysis of things that we would normally do manually, that probably would take, I don't know, 4 hours of data pulling, just because of the different data sources. So that way we were able to get the data populated within the dashboard, and then we would use that data to do our initial analysis, and that would generate questions that we normally ask during our discovery calls. So we are able to go into discovery call with a set of data points and set of questions that would then generate discussion with a lead, that shows that we understand the business, or we at least have a really strong context of what the business has done, and then we're able to kind of fill in the gaps during discovery. And then after that, we're able to pretty much set up a strategy for a client, because once we understand their objectives, we already know the context, and then we can connect the two, and then we can put a solid strategy based on these two inputs.
Got it. And let's check how important is data function for PointStory, because it's not very common for agencies to invest in a data warehouse and then build their own custom solution, right?
So
what are some
yeah,
of the motivating factors for you to invest in a data function?
sure. So first, kind of half jokingly, the name PointStory actually shows how important data is, because the whole idea of PointStory is that we consist of two elements. Point represents data, and story represents the narrative of the data. So it's even embedded in our name. So it's important.
Nice.
We want to be able to tell a story using data, and so it's fundamental. Data is fundamental to us, because we're performance marketing above anything else. And without data, we cannot understand the performance, and we cannot design a strategy to grow whatever the objectives of the business of our clients are. We use data to understand, and it's very important to have the data for us, because some of the limitations in the past was that, especially around advertising, data is not available. within the platform over, I think 90 days. It used to be 60 days, 90 days, whatever that cutoff is. And so if we wanted to go back using, let's say Seller Central, Vendor Central, or the console, the data was not there. And so few times we had unfortunate events where we couldn't do an analysis, whether it's for existing client or a lead that we were doing an audit. And so it's super critical for us. We also, from the seasonality perspective, we do a lot of seasonality analysis. And then we know that, because of pandemic, how, seasonality gets thrown, everything was, is now upside down. And, looking at 3 years ago, 4 years ago, comparing in the last 2 years, we see very different trends. So it's very important for us to be able to go back, even 3, 4, 5 years, just so we have, not just annual seasonality, but annual seasonality over time, because we do see, consumer trends very different depending on the year that we've seen. The pre-pandemic years, and then pandemic years, and hopefully post-pandemic years. I think we've seen very different behavior from the consumers.
Got it. And are you happy with the decision that you've made in selecting us, Lestic? And can you touch upon like your experience working with our implementation team also?
Yeah, now working with you guys, we're happy because we are definitely, we feel like we're partners. We feel like the feedback that we're providing is heard and implemented. You guys are always very available. So even whatever aspect we work on, whether it's initially was building just a fundamental a dashboard, then working on marketing stream data and building that out, hourly data, being able to see performance and just going deep, or even working on marketing clouds and being able to run queries. So you guys are very responsive, available, whether it's, having standing meetings, doing, ad hoc meetings. We've been very, very pleased with that. And, I think a testament to that is, we continue working together. We have new projects. And hopefully, we also feel like we can help, provide a perspective on how the data is used, and helps answer some of the questions. So yeah, it's been very good, and we hope to continue working together on, solutions, because it's an ever-changing environment. There's more data and, new APIs coming in, more data exposed to us. So it's just getting more complicated, to be honest. And so we need a partner who can stay on top of all the changes from the data perspective.
Got it. And Leszek, from what was I going to ask you? So typically, working with outsourced companies, Leszek, did you have concerns before engaging with us? And now, after this engagement, how do you think your overall experience was working with us?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, we've had experiences when you work initially with a sales team, and the sales team has a certain message and sets certain expectations, and then once the contract is signed, you work with a different team that doesn't necessarily always deliver to those expectations that were set by the sales team. And I think with Saras, it was like not the opposite, because it's not like it was a terrible sales team, but it was definitely consistent. Like it was, there were things that we weren't necessarily expecting. Like we didn't necessarily, for example, expect like such high level of involvement, and even having like all these stand-ups early on, which was a nice surprise. Or we would start working on, let's say, the dashboard, and then there were other, like Saras would come up with initiatives that we weren't necessarily thinking about early on, and that was like, well, what if we did this? Like, would that help you guys? So they're like definitely very innovative and proactive. in finding, they were like listeners like, oh, this is the problem that we have, and let's say the data was not there, but they would find like alternative ways of grabbing the data. Maybe data is not available through API. Well, maybe we can find some kind of other mechanism where we can retrieve this data in a creative process. So that's definitely been a really nice surprise. And then just the consistency of work and the consistency of talent, I think, is very, very unusual. So yeah, we definitely see that as a great, not a surprise, but it's like definitely you don't really see that a lot with other software providers or so.
Got it. Yeah. And let's take final question. Would you recommend Saras Analytics to anyone else? And if yes, what would be the reasons for
Yeah, and hopefully not to our competitors, because we don't want them to have the edge.
that?
No, I mean, I think, for any, I would recommend Saras to anybody who is looking to have a good grasp on data to really understand their business. And I would recommend to anybody who understands the data but maybe doesn't have the resources and is looking for a partner who can bring the technical expertise and familiarity with different e-commerce platforms, and who can put everything together for you, because they will. And whether it's like whether if somebody's looking for more out of the box or customized, we certainly had more of an experience building a very customized solution based on requirements. So I would recommend to anybody that is looking for that kind of a solution, because it's really difficult to find, and especially at that price point. Like, I think it can get very expensive very quickly, and I think working with Saras was really good in the way of controlling the cost. Like, there was no surprises in terms of extra fees, or we've went over the hours, so now we're going to charge you this absorbent amount. It was very clear from the beginning what's going to cost, and there were no surprises along the way, and I think that's very unusual in my experience.
Lester, can you help us understand how Point Story is different as an e-commerce focused agency in this crowded market?
Sure, yeah, it is a crowded market. I think there's several aspects that make us unique. So we are definitely a boutique agency, meaning that we work very closely with our partners. We work very closely to understand their unique needs. So we believe that we should have a unique solution for every client, because we are very focused on our clients and their what they're looking for. So we spent quite a bit of time early on understanding their business, and we really ask a lot of questions early on, and we want to make sure that we understand the context of the business and where the company wants to go in terms of sales, in terms of profitability. We want to understand that we want to understand all the KPIs that are very critical, because we know that for different brands there are very different objectives and there are very different KPIs. So we want to be as close as possible. We want to align as a long-term partner. We don't want to just come in and do a project and then leave. And we also base our compensation on the success of the client. So from the very beginning, we want to align on the goals. We want to have the same goals. So for example, a lot of big agencies will charge the client based on the spend. Let's say a percentage of spend, and we don't do that, because we don't believe this is the right way to do it, because it's very easy to spend a lot of money for the client and not generate returns. And so we don't really believe that. We align on goals. So whether it's sales goals or efficiency goals, so that's how we want to be compensated. So when the client wins, we win, because that just makes it's more of a team effort, and we walk towards the same goal. So that's number one. Number two, even though we're a boutique agency, we are very close to Amazon. So we are an Amazon partner agency, where we We meet with Amazon at the least on weekly basis, if not more often. We have access to the latest information from Amazon. We have access to betas, any beta program, even closed beta. In fact, we even go a little bit earlier when we participate in pilots. So before something becomes even a beta, we're invited to pilot programs with Amazon advertising. So we have a good understanding of where Amazon advertising is going, what the roadmap is. And so we can get our clients into these pilots if it's a good fit. So we always ask our clients if they're interested. It's certainly an option, but we find an extreme value for clients because a lot of times it's an opportunity that nobody else may have, or a very small group of people. Because some of these pilots will, that we would look maybe at Amazon level, they would look maybe at 8 clients, and we get a seat at that table. So that's very unique. So I think a combination of being, small, but also having access to the latest products from Amazon and the data. And we also are very big on data. And so obviously that is the reason why we partner up with Saras. So we're able to get very granular data. And, we provide on the account management side of things, we have a very senior team. We don't have any junior people on our account management. It's all people that have extensive e-commerce advertising experience. So you'll never get, a junior person working on your account ever. And even the founders are very involved in day-to-day, whether it's catalog work, marketing, fulfillment, advertising. We have senior leaders that are involved on account level. And that's, we want to be extremely high quality. And that's why, we're a boutique and we're focused on quality as opposed to quantity of clients. I think that makes us quite unique.